So after 10 plus years in the hobby, I finally decided to breed for zero bearded dragons, and let's just say I was kind of disappointed. What's up, YouTube? So yes, why am I disappointed about breeding bearded dragons that everyone wants? Everyone wants a zero. Everyone wants a no pattern, no color, plain ass bearded dragon. Don't know why. I don't get it. I still don't get it, even after producing my own. I've owned zeros, I've owned Wiros, I've owned Wiblets, I've owned almost every single type of bearded dragon that there is, except red monsters. Let's not go there though. Actually, I take that back. Right now I have a 75% red monster, and he's pretty cool. The only thing I have to say about him, I don't know if it's just that individual dragon or if it's just, you know, red monsters in general. He is slow growing. He's very slow growing. I know there's red monsters out there that like boom in size. That's because, you know, feeding is very important when it comes to growth rate. But this dragon, I got him about the same size as the other dragon that I got from the same breeder. And the other dragon is probably, you know, pushing 40, 50 grams. I think she might be closer to 60 grams. Did I weigh her? I think I did weigh her. She might have been closer to 60 grams. But the other one that I have, it's about 20 grams still, so he's very small. He's just not really into food. He eats whenever he feels like it. So that's besides the point. We're talking about zeros today. Zeros. So I finally produced my zero bearded dragons after 10 plus years. I got my first Wiblets, I want to say 2013, maybe 2012, something like that, when I got my first Wiblets. Hypo Wiblets, pretty plain. He was a hypo leatherback Wiblets, and he was 66% het, translucent. Well, that started my entire fascination with the, you know, patternless morphs of bearded dragons, which Wiblet zeros are patternless morphs of bearded dragons. The only difference really between them is that Wiblets maintains color, so you can pump color into Wiblets based off the pairings that you do, versus zero, doesn't matter what you do, it's always going to be a gray bearded dragon. The only thing is, obviously, depending on the pairing, you may have a lighter bearded dragon or you may have a darker bearded dragon, but that's not really, there's not much wiggle room there in terms of what you get. Because right now I have a zero that came from, you know, mediocre parents in terms of color, and she is very white, but then during certain times she can get very dark, so there's not really much correlation there. But I have seen very dark bearded dragons even at their lightest form, so it could just be the darker bearded dragons produce darker zeros. That's my only thing about it. I've not dabbled into it too much because, as you can see from this video, I've only done a pairing for zeros once. Strictly for zeros. That's it. This is the first time and probably going to be my last time. In this video, I also want to touch on translucent just a little bit, because I have noticed that a lot of people are asking, well, why do you breed visual translucent to het translucent if it's a weak gene? Well, I do a lot of vetting when it comes to my translucent morphs. So if any of my visual translucents have to be from het to het, or they have to have grandparents that were het to het. I don't like a bunch of weakening generations. So essentially, I don't want generations of visual to trans, visual to trans, visual to trans, or even trans to trans in there, because translucent is a very weak morph. I think that one of my bearded dragons that I got for the translucent stuff is not a viable breeder. I'm not too sure, but we'll see. Because, you know, sometimes you ask for lineage information and you can't really get all the way to the grandparents. You can only get what the parents were, because people don't keep track of all that. Not me. I keep track of all of it. I even have some of these being great grandparents information. So if you need that, I probably have it. Especially if I produced it and I produced the parents, I'll have it. So the problem with it is that the zeros that I produce, if you saw the video, a lot of them were, actually all of them were translucent. And actually there was two of them that were hypotransdunners. Both of them were hypotransdunners. The other ones were just regular bearded dragons. The whole clutch kind of went bad, so I don't know if this has something to do with it, but the entire clutch kind of went bad versus, and not versus, but it left me with a small clutch, so not a lot of data to go off of, and it left me with only 2 zeros, and both happen to be translucent. Why am I complaining? Why am I going through all this, right? After all of this time, probably I want to say a month or two, the dragons aren't growing that fast. Don't know why. I don't know if it's because they're translucent. I don't know if it's because they're zeros. If you remember in the video, there was 2 dragons that were not even from that clutch. They're about twice the size already. So why would that happen? There was 2 dragons that hatched in that same tray because, you know, I messed up and I pulled the clutch and there was a clutch was already in there and I didn't mix it up, or I mixed it up improperly essentially. And there was 2 dragons in that clutch that I could tell were not from that clutch because there were genetic stripes, yellows, dunners, leatherbacks, and all that. And essentially that wasn't part of the pairing. So I knew they weren't part of that clutch, but you can tell they're definitely not part of that clutch now because they're growing much faster than the other 2 dragons, than the other dragons did from that 0 clutch. Why? Again, is it because they're zeros or is it because they're translucent? I want to say it's because they're translucent. I'm not bagging on any 0 people. If you like zeros, go for zeros. Breed your zeros. Do what you got to do with the zeros. This is the reason why earlier this year I said I was going to switch my, you know, collection a little bit more into breeding het-to-het translucent just for a couple generations until I feel comfortable enough doing visual to het again, because that's all I used to do was het-to-het. But now I have a lot of visual because that's what I got. But no, I'm going to have to go back to doing het-to-het, especially with the yellows. The yellows, I know people like the translucent stuff, but the yellows do not benefit from being translucent. They can to an instant, like they become more vibrant, but the yellows kind of dull out and become a little bit more green or more orange, and essentially I don't like that. So definitely with yellows, I'm taking all that out. I only have 1 visual translucent that's a yellow right now, so that's pretty good in my opinion out of all of the... Well, actually, I take that back because the Het Wiblets male that I have is also technically yellow, but he's not for the yellows. So he is yellow, but he's translucent, but he's also for the Wiblets. So there's that. Again, why am I disappointed? Well, besides the fact that they're not growing that fast, besides the fact that the whole clutch went bad, besides the fact that they have no color, no pattern, they're pretty plain, pretty basic, I have already lost more than I have ever lost from any clutch based off my entire years of experience. Being that this is my first 0 clutch, I expected so much from it because everyone kept asking me for zeros. So immediately when the clutch went bad, I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be producing zeros. Then the clutch hatched. I got 2 zeros. I was like, you know what? Not too bad. Of the odds, out of 8 eggs, I got 2 zeros. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. Let's just see how this plays out. Because typically when I have a clutch go bad like that, so early on, I would just freeze all of the eggs and just toss them. Because I don't want nothing to do with that entire clutch because of the fact that you don't know what you're going to get. You could get deformities, you can get all these things, which I did get a deformity. If you can recall that one dragon with the leg. Still kicking, by the way. Still good. Still growing slow with other clutch mates, but still good nonetheless. So I let it go. I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens. Let's see where we go. We went. We kept going. And essentially they hatched out. They grew up into this tiny little beings of... They eat very sporadically, not as good as all the other hatchlings. I don't know what it is with this clutch. I don't know if it's a translucent. I don't know if it's a 0. But I know for a fact that the dad is a visual translucent. And he came from a visual translucent to a het translucent. So could it be that the grandparents were not, you know, het to het? I didn't get that information with him. So it could be that maybe he is not a viable breeder. But there's no way of knowing right now. Because this is the first clutch he's given me. No, actually, I take that back. This is the second clutch he's given me. And the first clutch grew to be perfectly fine. But had no zeros in it because it wasn't a het to het. Essentially, it was supposed to be het to het, but I was lied to with the female, so it was just a het to non-het 0 pairing, and all of the babies were fine. They grew up fine. They're all gone now, so essentially they did what they were supposed to do. They all grew to be, wonderful pets for whoever wants them. So I guess, long story short, I guess it's already a long story probably. I'm probably gonna have to sell my Het Zero stuff. I'm still gonna keep my zeros, my visual zeros, and I sold my Wiro actually because I've had him for 2 seasons breeding, and essentially I want to switch it up. So I sold my Wiro. I probably will sell the Het Zero stuff. I don't see a really good plan with any of them. I already sold one. I have 2 left. I have the male and a female. The female's still young. The male is technically still young, but he did breed, so he's not really young. I just say he's young because he's petite in size, but he breeds like... So the reason I decided to breed him if he's small is because he wouldn't eat. Because he was too worried about the ladies. I put a lady in there, he started eating. So, if anything, I did good for him. But, yeah, so the female is still pretty young. She's still about, I don't know the exact age. I can't remember. But I know she's about 240 grams. And he's about 200 grams. So, technically, I would wait till next season to see what size she is if you want to buy both of them. But he is a proven breeder 2 times over. So, maybe it's the combination of Zero and Translucent that's the problem. Who knows? And now I feel like I've been talking for very, very long. And you guys are probably sick and tired of me talking. So, with that said, if you enjoyed this video, I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know what I was going to say. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. As always, peace.